Why the mind wanders, why focus comes and goes. A calm psychology of attention. Attention is often spoken about as if it were a skill we possess, something we can strengthen, sharpen, or lose. In daily language, we say we are paying attention, as though attention were a deliberate act, a transaction between effort and outcome. From a psychological perspective, this framing is misleading. The mind does not hold attention in the way a hand holds an object. Attention moves, it shifts, it drifts and returns. This movement is not a malfunction. It is the default behavior of a living nervous system. When attention wanders, many people assume something has gone wrong. They search for causes, distraction, weakness, lack of discipline. They attempt correction, forcing focus, tightening effort, applying pressure. Yet research in cognitive science suggests something quieter and more stable beneath this experience. Attention is not governed primarily by willpower. It is governed by safety, relevance, and energy. The mind attends to what feels meaningful, what feels unresolved, or what feels potentially important for survival. When none of these signals are urgent, attention softens. It spreads, it drifts. This episode explores attention not as a task to be managed, but as a biological rhythm to be understood. There is nothing here to practice, nothing to improve, nothing to correct. If your attention wanders while listening, that is expected. If sleep arrives, that is appropriate. We begin by looking at what attention actually is. Chapter 1. What attention actually is. In psychology and neuroscience, attention is not a single process. It is a coordination of systems that determines where mental energy is allocated. At any moment, the brain is processing far more information than reaches awareness. Sounds, sensations, memories, predictions, bodily signals all compete quietly in the background. Attention is the process by which some of these signals are given priority. This prioritization is not neutral. It is shaped by evolution. From an adaptive standpoint, attention exists to detect relevance. Relevance in this sense does not mean interest or productivity. It means potential impact on safety, survival, or social connection. This is why attention is drawn so easily to uncertainty, threat, or novelty, and why it becomes diffuse when these signals are absent. Sustained, narrow focus is metabolically expensive. It requires the coordination of multiple cortical networks and a steady supply of energy. The brain does not maintain this state unless there is a reason to do so. When people describe difficulty focusing, they often assume a failure of discipline. More often, it is a signal of depletion. Fatigue, emotional load, and cognitive saturation all reduce the brain's willingness to allocate attention narrowly. In these conditions, attention widens. Thoughts begin to drift. The mind moves toward memory, imagination, and association. This drifting is frequently misinterpreted as distraction. In reality, it reflects a nervous system easing out of effort. Importantly, attention is not lost when it wanders. It is redistributed. The mind turns inward when the external world no longer demands immediate response. This inward movement supports integration, linking past experience with future possibility. From this perspective, wandering attention is not the opposite of focus. It is part of the same system. Understanding this changes how attention is experienced, rather than something that must be held in place. Attention can be seen as something that responds intelligently to internal conditions. When safety is present, urgency fades. When urgency fades, attention softens. This is not a problem to be solved. It is a pattern to be recognized. Chapter 2. Why the mind wanders. When attention loosens, the mind rarely becomes empty. Instead, it turns toward memory, imagination, and quiet narrative. This shift is not random. It reflects the activity of a large-scale brain network, often referred to as the default mode network. A set of regions that becomes more active when external demands are low. The default mode network is associated with remembering the past, simulating the future, reflecting on the self, and making sense of experience. It is active during rest, daydreaming, and moments when attention is no longer anchored to a specific task. For many people, this activity is misunderstood. Mind wandering is often described as distraction, rumination, or loss of control. Yet from a cognitive perspective, it serves an integrative function. The brain is not designed to remain perpetually oriented toward the present moment. It evolved to move between what is happening now and what might matter later. When immediate demands recede, attention turns inward to organize, connect, and anticipate. This is why wandering thoughts so often involve unfinished conversations, unresolved questions, or imagined futures. These are not intrusions. They are signals that the brain is continuing its work in the absence of urgency. Importantly, this inward drift is most pronounced when the environment feels safe. When threat is present, whether physical, social, or emotional, attention narrows. The brain prioritizes detection and response. When threat subsides, that narrow focus is no longer necessary. Attention widens and internal material becomes accessible. This pattern explains a common experience, the mind wandering most strongly at night. As the day's demands fade and the body prepares for rest, external vigilance decreases. The default mode network becomes more active. Thoughts that were postponed during the day now have space to emerge. This can feel unsettling if one expects the mind to become quiet before sleep, but cognitively, it is coherent. The brain is transitioning from action to integration. Problems arise not because the mind wanders, but because wandering is interpreted as failure. When drifting thoughts are judged or resisted, arousal increases. The nervous system re-enters a state of monitoring and attention tightens again. In this way, attempts to suppress mind wandering often prolong wakefulness and mental agitation. From a psychological standpoint, the wandering mind is not resisting rest. It is participating in it. Understanding this reframes the experience entirely. The question is no longer, why can't I focus? It becomes, what is my mind doing when it no longer needs to stay alert? This shift in interpretation reduces conflict, and when conflict reduces, attention settles naturally. Chapter 3: Attention, Threat, and Safety. Attention is highly sensitive to threat. This sensitivity is not learned. It is built into the nervous system. From an evolutionary perspective, the primary function of attention is protection. The brain allocates attention first to what might signal danger, uncertainty, or loss. This occurs automatically, without conscious decision. When a potential threat is detected, attention narrows. Peripheral information fades. The mind becomes oriented toward monitoring, prediction, and control. This narrowing is adaptive in genuinely dangerous situations. It becomes problematic when the signals of threat are abstract, internal, or persistent. Worry is one such signal. Worry does not require an immediate external danger. It arises from the brain's capacity to imagine future outcomes. Once activated, worry recruits attentional resources as though something urgent is occurring, even when the body is physically safe. This is why worried attention feels sticky. Thoughts repeat, scenarios loop. Attention becomes difficult to disengage. Importantly, the brain does not distinguish clearly between imagined threat and real threat. Both trigger similar attentional patterns. As long as uncertainty remains unresolved, attention stays locked. When people attempt to relax or focus while worry is active, they often encounter resistance. This is not defiance, it is coherence. The brain is prioritizing vigilance because it believes something requires resolution. Safety is the condition that allows attention to soften. When safety cues are present, predictability, familiarity, low demand, the nervous system reduces its monitoring. Attention widens. Internal pressure decreases. This is why environments associated with comfort, routine, or ritual often feel mentally spacious. The brain recognizes these contexts as low risk. Attention no longer needs to scan. Conversely, when safety is ambiguous, even subtle uncertainty can capture attention. Unfinished tasks, interpersonal tension, or unresolved decisions can all function as low-level threat signals. In such states, wandering attention may be interrupted by intrusive thought. The mind drifts, encounters uncertainty, tightens, then drifts again. This oscillation is exhausting not because attention is broken, but because it is doing exactly what it was designed to do under mixed signals. Understanding this pattern is stabilizing. It clarifies that attention does not require force to return, it requires the absence of perceived threat. When the brain senses that nothing needs immediate correction, attention reorganizes on its own. This reorganization is gradual, not abrupt. It unfolds as vigilance decreases. Attention is not something to be overridden. It is something that follows the nervous system's assessment of safety. Chapter 4: Cultural Ways of Understanding Attention. Long before attention was studied in laboratories, it was observed in daily life. Across cultures and historical periods, people noticed that the mind does not hold itself in a fixed place. It moves in cycles, responds to rhythm, and settles when conditions allow. Many traditional societies did not treat attention as something to be trained or disciplined. Instead, it was understood as something shaped by environment, ritual, and shared time. In oral storytelling cultures, attention was not expected to remain narrow and constant. Stories were long, repetitive, and layered. Listeners drifted in and out of awareness, catching fragments, images, and familiar turns of phrase. Understanding did not require continuous focus, meaning accumulated gradually. This form of attention was collective rather than individual. The responsibility to stay focused did not rest on the listener alone. The rhythm of the story carried attention forward, allowing the mind to relax without losing connection. Similar patterns appear in contemplative traditions. Silence, chanting, and slow movement were not designed to sharpen focus, but to soften it. Attention was allowed to widen until it became receptive rather than effortful. In many monastic settings, for example, repetition was valued precisely because it reduced cognitive demand. Familiar words and gestures signaled safety and predictability. Attention no longer needed to monitor for novelty or threat. In these contexts, drifting attention was not corrected, it was expected. Modern environments differ sharply. Attention is often treated as a resource to be managed, optimized, and defended. Continuous engagement is rewarded. Drift is framed as failure. This shift has consequences. When attention is constantly demanded, the nervous system remains in a low-level state of vigilance. Opportunities for mental integration decrease. The mind has fewer chances to wander safely. Cultural expectations shape how attention is interpreted. In environments that tolerate drift, wandering feels natural. In environments that demand control, wandering feels like error. Recognizing this difference matters. It reveals that difficulty with attention is not solely an individual problem. It is often a mismatch between biological rhythms and cultural demands. From this perspective, the wandering mind is not resisting modern life. It is responding to it. Understanding attention as rhythm rather than control allows a different relationship to emerge. One that does not require correction, but accommodation. Chapter 5: How Attention Returns. Attention does not need to be summoned. It returns on its own. This return is subtle. It is not marked by effort or decision. Often it is only noticed after it has already happened, when the mind feels quieter, more gathered, less dispersed. From a neurological standpoint, this return reflects a rebalancing of competing systems. When novelty fades, threat resolves, or fatigue deepens, the brain reduces its scanning behavior. Attention no longer needs to search. Importantly, attention returns when interference stops. Effort, paradoxically, can delay this process. When people notice their mind wandering and immediately attempt to correct it, they reintroduce monitoring. Monitoring signals uncertainty. Uncertainty reactivates vigilance. Attention tightens again. This creates a loop: wandering, correction, vigilance, wandering. In contrast, when wandering is allowed, the loop dissolves. The brain completes whatever low-level integration it was engaged in, then releases it. This is why attention often returns during activities that are repetitive and non-demanding. Walking, showering, listening to familiar voices. These contexts provide gentle structure without requiring control. The return of attention is not dramatic. It feels like settling. There is a soft narrowing, not toward effort, but toward coherence. Thoughts lose urgency. Sensations become simpler. Time feels less segmented. This settling is not something the mind does. It is something that happens when nothing else is required. Understanding this reduces pressure. Rather than trying to hold attention in place, one can allow it to move freely, trusting that it will reorganize when conditions permit. This trust is not philosophical, it is biological. The brain has been returning attention to baseline states long before conscious strategies existed. It does not need instruction. When this is understood, wandering becomes less disruptive, and because it is less disruptive, it occurs less forcefully. Chapter 6: Fatigue, Load, and the Conservation of Attention. Attention is constrained by energy. It fluctuates with metabolic availability, emotional demand, and cumulative cognitive load. When the brain is well rested and demands are moderate, attention can narrow and sustain itself with relatively little strain. As fatigue increases, this capacity diminishes. Attention widens not because of distraction, but because conservation becomes necessary. Cognitive load refers to the total amount of mental effort being used at a given time. This includes not only tasks that require concentration, but also emotional regulation, decision-making, and social monitoring. Much of this load operates outside awareness. When cognitive load is high, attention becomes less selective. The brain reduces effortful focus to preserve energy. This reduction is adaptive. It prevents depletion. In modern contexts, this adaptive response is often misread. Drifting attention is interpreted as lack of motivation or discipline. In reality, it frequently reflects saturation. The mind wanders because it can no longer justify the cost of sustained focus. This is especially evident after prolonged periods of subtle demand, continuous notifications, unresolved decisions, background stress. Even when no single task feels overwhelming, the cumulative load taxes attentional systems. Under these conditions, forcing focus increases strain without restoring capacity. The brain resists because the cost is too high. From a psychological perspective, wandering attention is a form of self-regulation. It limits expenditure when resources are low. It shifts processing toward associative, low-effort modes that allow partial recovery. This explains why attention often drifts toward familiar thoughts or imagery when fatigued. Novelty requires energy. Familiarity does not. Importantly, rest does not always feel restful. When attention widens, internal material may surface. This can give the impression of mental activity increasing, even as external demand decreases. The key distinction is effort. Wandering thoughts require less effort than directed focus, even if they feel busy. Understanding fatigue reframes the experience of drifting. Rather than a signal to push harder, it becomes a signal to reduce demand. When demand reduces, attention does not need to escape. It reorganizes. Chapter 7: Fragmented Environments and the Cost to Attention. Attention does not exist in isolation. It is shaped continuously by the environment in which it operates. In natural settings, attention evolved to move between extended periods of engagement and extended periods of rest. A task would demand focus, then conclude. A threat would appear, then resolve. Between these moments, attention softened. Modern environments interrupt this rhythm. Instead of clear beginnings and endings, the mind is exposed to a stream of partial signals. Notifications, reminders, messages, and unfinished tasks appear briefly, then vanish without closure. Each one captures attention just long enough to activate monitoring, but not long enough to resolve it. The nervous system remains in a state of partial readiness. This creates fragmentation. Attention is not fully engaged, but it is not fully at rest. it oscillates. The mind shifts repeatedly between brief focus and diffuse awareness. Over time, this oscillation becomes tiring, not because attention is weak, but because it is being asked to reset too frequently. From a psychological perspective, this pattern is coherent. The brain treats incomplete information as unresolved. Unresolved signals require monitoring. Monitoring requires attention. When environments supply a continuous flow of incomplete signals, attention never receives the message that it can stand down. This is why even quiet moments can feel mentally busy. The external noise may have stopped, but the attentional system remains active, scanning for what might reappear. Importantly, this experience is often misattributed. People describe themselves as distracted, unfocused, or mentally scattered. In reality, attention is responding appropriately to an environment that does not clearly signal safety or completion. Fragmentation also interferes with the brain's ability to settle into deeper modes of processing. Sustained attention requires trust that nothing urgent will interrupt. When interruption becomes likely, the brain avoids full investment. Instead, it maintains a flexible, semi-alert state. This state is useful for rapid response, but costly when maintained for long periods. It increases fatigue and reduces the sense of mental coherence. Wandering attention in this context is not failure. It is a byproduct of attentional systems attempting to protect against unpredictability. Understanding this shifts responsibility away from the individual. It clarifies that attention is not malfunctioning. It is adapting. When the environment becomes more predictable, attention gradually reorganizes. When signals slow and resolve, vigilance decreases. This reorganization cannot be forced. It occurs as the nervous system receives consistent cues that nothing else is required. Fragmentation, then, is not a personal flaw. It is a condition. And attention, doing what it has always done, adjusts accordingly. Chapter 8. Attention during rest and the approach of sleep. As the body moves toward rest, attention changes its orientation. This change is gradual, not abrupt, and it is often misunderstood. During the day, attention is directed outward. It monitors the environment, tracks tasks, and responds to social and practical demands. This outward orientation is supported by posture, light, and movement. The nervous system remains alert because it needs to be. As evening arrives, many of these signals soften. Movement slows, light dims, external demands lessen. In response, attention begins to turn inward. This inward shift is not a failure to relax. It is a transition. When attention withdraws from the external world, internal material becomes more visible. Thoughts, memories, and impressions that were held in the background during the day now move closer to awareness. This can create the impression that the mind is becoming more active at the very moment rest is expected. From a psychological perspective, this is coherent. The brain is preparing for consolidation. During rest and sleep, the brain integrates memory, emotion, and experience. Attention supports this process by loosening its attachment to immediate stimuli and allowing associative networks to activate. The mind moves through fragments of the day, not to rehearse them deliberately, but to organize them. This process does not require conscious effort. It unfolds on its own when external vigilance decreases. Difficulty arises when this inward activity is interpreted as a problem. If drifting thoughts are labeled as restlessness or overthinking, arousal increases. The nervous system re-engages monitoring systems. Attention tightens again, pulled back toward evaluation and control. This reactivation delays rest. Importantly, the presence of thought does not prevent sleep. Urgency does. When thoughts are allowed to pass without judgment, attention continues its inward movement. The mind drifts, images soften, and coherence loosens. Sleep emerges from this softening, not from silence. Many people expect the mind to become blank before sleep. This expectation is inconsistent with how attention actually functions. Sleep is not preceded by the absence of mental activity, it is preceded by the absence of demand. Attention settles when it no longer needs to evaluate, resolve, or prepare. Thoughts may still appear, but they carry less weight. They do not require response. Understanding this changes the experience of nighttime attention. Rather than something to be managed, it becomes something to accompany. The mind is not resisting rest when it wanders at night. It is transitioning into it. When this is recognized, the struggle to control attention diminishes. And as control diminishes, attention is free to complete its movement towards sleep. Chapter 9. Allowing attention to move. There is a common assumption that attention must be guided, that without direction it will scatter or dissolve. This assumption is understandable. In many contexts, attention is treated as something fragile, easily lost and difficult to recover. As a result, people learn to monitor their own awareness closely, intervening whenever the mind drifts. From a psychological standpoint, this monitoring is not neutral. It introduces effort. When attention is observed with the intent to control it, the nervous system interprets this as a signal that something may be wrong. Vigilance increases. The mind becomes alert to its own movement. This self-monitoring can paradoxically destabilize attention. Rather than settling, the mind remains slightly tense, scanning itself for deviation. Allowing attention to move means something different. It means recognizing that wandering is part of attentional function, not evidence of failure. When this recognition is present, there is no need to correct or restrain the mind. Attention is free to complete its natural cycles. These cycles include drifting, association, narrowing, and release. They occur without conscious direction. When attention is not interrupted, it often returns quietly. The return is not forced. It is not announced. It is felt as a subtle gathering, a sense that the mind has fewer places it needs to be. This process depends on non-interference. Non-interference does not require passivity. It requires trust. Trust that attention knows how to reorganize itself when it is not being judged. Trust that mental movement does not require supervision. Over time, this trust reduces internal friction. Attention becomes less reactive because it is less scrutinized. This does not mean attention becomes fixed. It remains dynamic, responsive, alive. But the relationship to it changes. Instead of being treated as a problem to solve, attention becomes a process to observe without agenda. When observation is free of correction, the nervous system relaxes. And when the nervous system relaxes, attention stabilizes on its own. This stability is different from effortful focus. It feels softer, less deliberate, more sustainable. Importantly, this shift is not a technique. It does not involve instructions or practices. It is a change in interpretation. When wandering attention is no longer framed as loss, it loses its disruptive quality. It becomes background movement rather than interruption. The mind no longer needs to prove that it can focus. It simply moves and settles and moves again. Allowing attention to move is not an act. It is the absence of an act. And in that absence, attention finds its own balance. Chapter 10. Attention as a living system. Attention is often spoken about as though it were a possession, something that can be gained, lost, strengthened, or depleted. But attention is not an object. It is a living system, and it responds continuously to the body, the environment, and the mind's assessment of safety. It shifts without permission. It settles without instruction. It withdraws when demand is high and returns when nothing else is required. Across this episode, attention has appeared in many forms, as vigilance in the presence of threat, as drift during fatigue, as integration during rest, as oscillation in fragmented environments. None of these movements represent dysfunction. They are expressions of a system that is sensitive and adaptive. When attention narrows, it is responding to relevance. When it widens, it is conserving energy. When it wanders, it is organizing experience. The difficulty arises not from these movements, but from how they are interpreted. When wandering is framed as failure, attention becomes something to defend. Monitoring increases, effort follows, and with effort comes tension. But when attention is understood as responsive rather than unreliable, the relationship changes. The mind no longer needs to be held in place. It can move freely, knowing it will return when conditions allow. This return does not require discipline. It requires safety. Safety is not something the mind must create. It is something the nervous system recognizes when nothing needs to be resolved. In moments of safety, attention reorganizes naturally. Thoughts lose urgency. Sensations soften. The mind settles without instruction. This settling is not a special state. It is the baseline condition of a system that is no longer scanning for threat. Understanding attention in this way removes pressure. There is nothing to improve, nothing to fix. Attention does not need to be managed. It needs to be allowed. And when it is allowed, it reveals its intelligence. As this episode comes to a close, there is no need to hold on to anything that was said. If parts of it were missed, that is expected. If attention wandered, that is appropriate. This was not something to follow closely. It was something to accompany. The mind drifts when it no longer needs to stay alert. It settles when nothing is being demanded of it. If your attention is soft now, let it remain soft. If it is moving, let it move. Nothing here needs to be completed. There is nowhere else to go. The mind knows how to return when it is ready. And if sleep arrives before that return is noticed, the system has already done what it needed to do. For now, allow whatever is happening to continue. No correction is required. This is how attention rests.